Skins is a show about teenagers with extreme personalities. Teenagers radicalized by the human experiences and amoral conditions of the postmodern era. Skins is extremely good. Oh boy, this is cool. This is good. This is good. What I'm about to say is going to sound like a criticism, undoubtedly. But Skins UK is a lot like if Harmony Korine directed American Pie. That's the best way I can describe it. It's a very special, very insightful, very edgy, yet very funny and entertaining show. I was nervous going into it because the tone set by the first episode, Tony, was a bit darker, decidedly edgier, obviously going for a more controversial sort of reputation. And I was nervous. I was like, God, how that's gonna go too far? Is this going to go too far? And it never truly did, except for once. And actually, I'd like to talk about the one time Skins UK went too far first before I talk about anything else, because the instance where it went too far is also the instance where it attained genius, philosophical genius, in my opinion. And I'd love to talk about Tony. Tony, played by Nicholas Hoult, who I didn't know he was in Skins. I didn't know Dev Patel was in Skins. I didn't know anybody was in this show. I heard of Skins for a long time. This came out in 2007. I was like 17 when it came out. I was the target audience, and I think it did interest me, but I didn't have a way to watch it when it was originally on. I may have watched one episode once, but can't remember it at all. I really didn't have a way to watch that show, and I was way too busy at 17, doing drugs and sleeping around in real life to watch it shown on television. My life really wasn't as hopeless as these characters in Skins. I mean, maybe a little bit. Maybe a little bit. Don't sell yourself short, Zach. You're a piece of shit too. And this is definitely a show that's brought up by a lot of you that you wanted me to cover because I'm obsessed with teen drama. You're like, you got to do Skins UK, specifically the British Skins. You have to do it. And here I am. And I'm very happy I did it because, yes, it's extremely good. Let's talk about Tony. Let's talk about where it went too far. Let's talk about these characters. Tony, first of all, I love all these characters. And these characters would hate what I'm about to say, but I don't care. Every one of these kids, they're all so sweet. These are the sweetest kids. And you might be confused about why I'd say that, because they do objectively cruel, awful things. But the show does such a good job of displaying the massive sensitivities within all of them. The desire, the drive to actually feel something authentic, genuine, or unexpected, something real. And I find that to be so sweet, the ways that they try and ultimately fail time and time again to cultivate genuine connections. There's some fatal, fundamental character flaw within each of them that prohibits them from being as truthfully humane as I think each of them would truly like to be. With other characters like Sid and Cassie, Maxie, you can see these sensitivities in a much clearer way. Anwar, Jal, you can see these sensitivities in a much easier way. Actually, you can see the sensitivities within everyone very easily, except for Tony. Tony, for 8 solid episodes, for the overwhelming majority of this season, is almost an operating sociopath. He's a functional psychopath. But there's like so much more to it than that. I mean, he's a cruel character. He seems to exclusively engage in relationships of command, relationships of manipulation. I mean, he's expressed as much, like, blatantly to people. He loves keeping Sid and his girlfriend, Michelle, under his thumb. He manipulates everyone, and he says it's out of boredom. But Sid comes to learn the truth. He does it because he can. He does it because he's literally a bad person who doesn't care about anything. He's an awful person. And we see him several times reading from different philosophers. I believe the first time we see him, he's reading Nausea by Jean-Paul Sartre, which I read all the time in high school. I was not like Tony, by the way, but I did read Nausea. And Nausea, existentialism, or even nihilism, he read Nietzsche later, can radicalize uh, a hopeless youth, and especially a narcissistically hopeless youth. Um, and throughout the season, we see Tony set up these games of manipulation and use everyone around him, betray everyone around him. And by around episode 8 and 9, near the end of the season, he loses everyone. He loses everything. His games stop working. Little by little, as the season progresses, his control over this group and his control over his own life starts to fall apart. And the episode where it went too far, and when I say went too far, I'm talking about the tone, I'm talking about the intense edginess of it, like the despair of the show, because there are certain episodes like Chris where we came very close to going too far, but we somehow managed to stay on the digestible side of the line that is too overwhelming emotionally to deal with, because sometimes a show can be so overwhelming that it's emotionally exhausting. And Skins had one episode where that was it. It was called Effy. It's where we focus on Tony's sister, who I genuinely, I'm going to tell you right now, I forgot she existed. Because the last time we see her in the first episode, Tony sneaking into the house, not saying a word, and then we don't think about her again until episode 8. I'm not even sure if there's a mention if anyone even mentions her until episode 8, where the episode focuses on her. If you watch Skins, you know that each episode there's a central featured character within them, and she got episode 8, Effy, and we kind of follow her through what she does at night, which is just this wild, almost like club kid, bird's eye view of nihilism. And Tony starts to worry about her. And you think he's worried, and he's absolutely worried because he does love his sister. It's like the one person that he does love in the entire world. But you also get notes of jealousy from Tony, because Tony hates the boredom of his human experience, especially where they live. He hates the idea that his sister is somehow leading a more chaotic life than him. He's also a person who believes that chaos might be the only true definer of the human condition. And you get some notes of jealousy, like, what is she doing? What is my little sister doing? Or, it's such a cool and surprisingly complicated show that he's like, I thought my sister was going out having fun. I didn't know she was becoming more nihilistic than I was. I don't want her to become this dark, this twisted, this evil. Because that's literally the only person he cares about. He does care about Sid. He does care about Michelle, but that takes a little bit longer for him to truly express and accept. But in the episode Effie, God, man, it got so dark. The second it got too dark was when Effie finally spoke, and she said, sometimes I feel like I was born backward. And she has this really weird monologue right after she shoots up what you think is heroin, but it's certainly some sort of pharmaceutical, some fucking medical, some psych nurse attendee guy named Josh shot her up with it. And she goes on this monologue directly after intravenously doing the drug, and she talks about how the people that she, like, everything's backwards in her psychology and her philosophy. The people she should hate, she loves. The people she loves, well, she should hate. And passes out. Tony is searching for her. And right after Sid and Tony have this huge fight, and Sid kind of breaks away from the manipulation of Tony, at least within that moment, and calls out Tony for exactly what he is, which is basically vicious, a vicious sociopath. Tony goes by himself to the party where his sister is, and Josh is there, and I don't want to get into it, but this is largely Tony's doing, because Josh was the target of one of his like perverse manipulation games. And Josh is like, I will let you call 911 and save your sister if you fuck her. You need to fuck your sister right now. And it gets really aggressive. It gets really confrontational. He makes Tony beg. He makes him beg. And then he lets them go. And Tony is entirely defeated. And when I first watched that episode, as it was happening, I was like, nope, this is the mistake. This is the flaw. This is the mistake. This is the fatal flaw. This isn't good right now. Like, nope, this is not what I want from teen drama. This is way too dark. This is almost it's almost fetishizing edginess at this point. I was like, nope, I don't want to do this. This isn't good. This is the mistake. It finally went over the line. It finally got too dark, too edgy. It couldn't maintain its tonal balance, which I was very impressed by up until that point. And I thought that for a long time after I finished the episode too. And then it clicked in the finale when Tony, finally admits or confesses that he loves Michelle and seems to be acting like a true and genuine friend to Sid by giving Cassie like a love letter that Sid had wrote her, stuff I don't think he would have done previous to the Effy episode. And he also finally has a great conversation with his sister. Even his relationship with his sister is fascinating because Tony's like, I liked it better when you didn't talk, because the first time that his sister does talk to him within the show, she's calling him a wanker for treating Michelle so terribly, so cruelly, so viciously. And he listens to her, and that's when he actually confesses that he loves Michelle and then immediately gets run over by a bus. But the relationship's really complex because you start to think, or at least I started to think, maybe he loved his sister Effy so much as compared to everyone else because he was projecting onto her a certain type of very clever person. And I do think Effy is very clever, but that's like the word deliberately that Tony uses to describe Effie, and I think he's projecting it onto this almost mute character. And then when she finally starts to talk, he actually does listen. He actually does listen to her. So I think the love is genuine, but where the roots of that love, I think, are founded also in a narcissistic place. If he was projecting onto her certain things, maybe like she was the hope, because he doesn't want to be nihilistic, and that's the point of the Effie being dark episode. Episode 8, Effie, it had to be so dark that it scared the nihilism out of Tony, and that was so powerful. That hit me so bad, so hard, so intensely, and with such a great and mighty force to my emotional gut. That episode had to be so dark, so twisted, so nightmarish. There were parts that were completely nightmarish, like when Tony first arrives at the party and he's being chased by these people with masks. Like, it's nightmarish. It's like a haunted house. It had to be so scary, dark, and twisted that the nihilism was scared out of Tony. Tony, you're a nihilist, right? What if I showed you a glimpse, just a mere glimpse into the void? You wouldn't be able to handle it, and he couldn't handle it. In that moment, he was consumed not by meaninglessness, but by pure meaning and devotion for his sister, and shame for his actions throughout the season that had led to that point. Like, that's so cool to me because it is relatable. Once again, I'm not like Tony, but there are times where I've gone like a little off the deep end with nihilism, with pessimism, with thinking that everything's meaningless, that I do, or at least I used to, put myself in like really bad situations and with really bad people. And there are moments of clarity where you look around and you go, this is absolutely terrifying. This isn't real. This is absolutely terrifying. This is going to give me philosophical nightmares for the rest of my life. Something happens that scares the nihilism out of you. And that's what happened to Tony. Tony was, I think, the darkest part of the show. He was easily the darkest character. He was, the character most likely to do something absolutely unforgivable eventually. And I'm sure there's people who watch this show who think that he is, at this point, a completely irredeemable character. Once again, I think all these kids are sweet, and I think that Tony might be the sweetest and most heartbreaking of all, which I know is surprising to hear, but it truly is. Because when you're a teenager, you become radicalized. Like I said at the beginning of this video, you become radicalized by a certain philosophy that a part of you will hold on to for the rest of your life. And if you're radicalized by nihilism, by extreme existentialism, like Tony was, by a sort of poetic narcissism, like Tony was, it can erode at the at your very spirit. If you believe that you actually have one, it starts to eat away at it until there's almost nothing left. And I think there was a speck of soul left within Tony, and a soul could be whatever you want. It's just a spark of something sweet left within Tony, and that spark supernovaed in the Effy episode. And I saw that naive and sweet and pathetically terrified kid crying out in the name of meaning itself. And I was so shocked and impressed by it. Like, when I first watched the episode, I was taken aback and I was turned off by just how intense it was. I thought it went way too far into Harmony Korine Wonderland, right? It went way too far into that kind of um, excessive, depressing shit. But by the time the finale finished, and when I had a couple moments to really think about it, I realized that the episode was as dark as it needed to be, because it needed to be extraordinarily dark and intense and problematic. It had to be, because the nihilism had to be scared out of Tony. It wasn't going to be scared out of him by love. It wasn't going to be loved out of him. Nihilism isn't loved out of kids, out of radical youth. Nihilism is scared out of them by just how meaningless and dude, it's so scary. Tony was my favorite character. Nicholas Hoult did incredibly well. He was my favorite character. The character right behind him, though, who I think is extremely um, affecting, is Cassie. Cassie is so good. I love her. I think that the two best episodes are, well, there's three that really just, I think, were highlights. The episodes Cassie, Chris, and Effy. Those ones really get to me. Cassie is so good. What an incredible character. And we get to explore mental illness. We get to explore how mental illness could be. Like I said, each of these characters, all of the fundamental flaws, hangups, and insecurities that they have, were kind of radicalized into them by just how awful and uncaring and unfeeling the rest of the world is. And we can see just how devastating that can be through Cassie, where it expresses itself, this radicalization expresses itself through severe mental illness. And I really love the episode Chris, because that might truly be, outside of the Tony episode, the most complicated and poetic the show is. Chris's mother abandons him. He loses his house. This is all like so symbolic and so powerful. Like, he's kicked out of his house naked and humiliated after his mother abandons him, and he has this sexual fixation on a school teacher who is really cute. Looks a lot like Katy Perry, actually, but he has like I was feeling it. He has this fixation on her. Who in that episode you start to see that it's partly like Freudian almost. It's like it's really deep how his mother abandoned him, so he's like putting all of his affections, wants, and desires onto this older ideal of a woman, his psychology teacher. Like, she goes to his party and then she leaves the party because Chris's bodily function, because he took a bunch of Viagra at that time and he just had like this perpetual hard on, and she leaves then, and he runs out into the street like begging for her to come back. It's more playful than I'm making it sound, but it's mirrored and paralleled with the fact that the other older woman in his life, his other Madonna, had left him. And we get some huge payoffs to the Chris episode, where He goes and visits his father with his like new family essentially, and they're going through photo albums. And Chris is like, "You're not going to find any pictures of me there. No one cares about me. No one wants to remember me. You're not going to find a picture of me in any kind of photo book, any kind of photo album." And they don't. And just to really solidify this idea that the affair that he's having with his teacher is meant to psychologically reflect his feelings of abandonment and how much he misses his own mother. In the finale, he goes through a photo album that his teacher, now his lover, has, and not a single picture of him, and he's flipping viciously through it. And until like I thought, he's not flipping through his teacher's photo album anymore. He's flipping through his mother's. He's flipping through his father's photo album, trying to find that baby picture from his own central episode, and he just can't find it because no one cares about him. Loses his mind. Chris was really good. All these kids are pretty good. The least defined out of all of them is Maxie, but I really liked him, and he had some great moments. Anwar was very cool. We get to talk about kind of a more conservative religious upbringing, especially within his friendship to Maxie. Maxie being a gay character. I loved Maxie. He was awesome. I just wish I had a little bit more insight into him. And I think we'll get that in the next season. I liked Maxie a lot. Michelle was wonderful. Michelle was great. Sid, I think if I had to choose a main character, I feel like Sid gets the most time to develop. Sid is really cool. Sid is great. Sid is being controlled by two things: by his the way he idolizes Tony, this nihilist choir boy, and by how much he wants to fuck Michelle. And his arc over the season is realizing that he loves Cassie. Thank God, Cassie is just adorable. You should love Cassie. She's a cool character. I do need to talk about the structure of Skins. You know, the way that this season or series is designed. It has a UK structure. In Britain, seasons tend to be shorter. So we're dealing with a 9-episode season here. I think the others are all going to be 10. And what ends up happening with that, you get the most power compacted into the fewest amount of episodes, which can make Skins feel overwhelming on the regular. I greatly prefer the kind of television structure of episodes popularized by network television, where it's anywhere from 18 episodes to 30 episodes. 22 seems to be the Goldilocks zone. Like a 22 or 23 episode long season seems to be perfect. That seems to be how you do it beautifully. Because I think through those long seasons, you actually get to grow and change with the characters. You give these massive events more room to breathe, and it's also more challenging for everyone involved to keep coming up with interesting ideas, and allows for experimentation too. You get to experiment with ideas and with character development that you wouldn't otherwise do. I think most of my favorite moments from so many of the teen dramas I've covered would have been cut if it was just like a 9-episode run where only the important parts or only the most meaningful parts are in everything. And I know that someone's going to be like, what, you're mad that there's like too much substance in Skins? And no, that's not what I'm saying at all. I'm saying that television, a part of television is filler. A part of television is that. A part of television is the opposite of substance. I think we have like a weird view that every single scene in every single movie or show should be entirely necessary to the main plot. And I don't think if you watch television with that kind of mindset, then you don't like television. I want to hang out with these people. Do you understand? I want to be in the atmosphere of these kids. I want to see these kids do absolutely meaningless things when it's concerned with the overall plot or philosophy of the show. I want to be around them. TV is about hanging out with your friends and growing through them. Like especially if it's a teen drama, that's almost exactly what it is. Every scene in a smaller show or in a shorter season that like Skins has is so powerful because they have to be, because they only have a certain amount of episodes. And I think it's easy to say, yeah, Skins was so good. It was so dark and so cool. Uh, it's easy to do 9 episodes like that. It's easy to do 9 episodes, even with this crazy kind of balancing act within the tone and the attitude and the philosophy of the show. It's easy to do 9 episodes. They can't do 22. There's no possible 22. That's a feat. That's a huge accomplishment. If you can maintain mastery for 22 episodes, wow, that's that's something to write home about. I'm not as impressed when it's 9 episodes, because ultimately I feel like if we're condensing all of this like powerful stuff into such a small amount of time anyway, might as well just make a film. Um, but the UK, Britain, they treat television differently, so I can treat this differently as well and tell you that it is extremely good. British television, it's absolutely good. Uh, So, um, the British seem to have a different way of preparing and producing television, which is shorter, which is faster, which is more to the point. I prefer the American way of doing it. Absolutely no debate. This wasn't an American show, so we're okay. I think another point that I have to discuss is the controversy surrounding the show. And like a cursory Google search made it clear that it was about the sexual content of the show, the eroticism of the show, and the ages of the cast members involved. I'm not sure how old they are. They do look exceptionally young. Like they do look like the ages of the characters that they're playing. They look very young. I'm talking about the principal characters. I'm talking about the main characters who participate in scenes with more problematic content in them. They should all be over 18, in my opinion, because I don't think there's any reasonable argument why they should actually be teenagers. There's none. There isn't one. I think I have edgier kind of cinephile friends who would be like, it's more real, it's more realistic. I don't want that, and neither do you. You're watching television. Like if you go to television, if you go anywhere apart, even if you watch documentary, if you watch the moving image for realism, you're an idiot. But especially television. Realism. Get fucked, bro. Like, no. No, you don't actually. That's not a reasonable argument. So you're telling me that it's more real and more powerful for you when the characters that are making out and engaging in explicit activities on the screen are actually young like that? Like that actually, that doesn't do anything. That doesn't do anything. So I think that Skins was very deliberately trying to attract a lot of controversy. I don't think it goes too far personally. I'm just talking about my overwhelming opinion, is that all these actors should be over 18 to be handling these things. And I don't think there's a reasonable argument for why I guess most of the Skins cast were under legal age. Like I don't, there's no reasonable argument for it. I think, and I'm not infantilizing these actors at all. I'm just simply saying it's better for everybody, the viewer, the actor, the network, for the show. At least when you're making a show like Skins, where part of the draw is its edginess, and you can't be edgy in 2007 without being sexually edgy. I don't think that kids should be participating in performing sexually edgy things on television. I think 18-year-olds can do it. 18 up, go for it. But otherwise, you are courting controversy and drama. You are courting the media to say certain things about your show. I know that a lot of American advertisers pulled out of backing the UK version of the show because they thought it was, CP. They thought a lot of it was too excessive. Uh, I don't agree with that. I think that's like really puritanical. Nothing, okay, unless they go way too far in later seasons, nothing in season one would warrant that. Season one goes just far enough, right? It's fine. It's fine. It can't go much further than that. And also, well, that's the thing. That's the thing. I was about to say the characters will get older, but the one thing that I do know about Skins is that the cast changes every 2 seasons. Like we only follow them through what's it called, sixth form, like their first 2 years of what the British call college, through being 17 and 18. I think that's like when we follow them. So I was about to say they get older, so it might be fine, but every 2 years we get a new group of extremely young actors. So who knows how far Skins will go. Right now, it's fine. Right now, it's fine. I understand criticisms, and that's the thing, dude. Like, we don't actually want to see teenagers in teen dramas. We don't actually want to. They look awkward. Um, it's weird. It's weird. People always make fun of the idea of someone in their mid 20s or even late 20s playing a high school student, but whereas that's like preferable to me. I prefer that. You're playing archetypes. You're not making a documentary here. And I much prefer that. I don't see what's so fucking funny about that, because like what you're actually saying is that instead of a 25-year-old dealing with like a teen pregnancy storyline, you'd rather see a teenager dealing with the sex and teen pregnancy storyline. And I think that that's worse. I think that that's more problematic to do. Honestly, when you're watching TV, there's a suspension of disbelief. Like, I don't have to believe that everyone is who they say they are. That's part of acting and part of the style of a show. But part of Skins' style is that I think it is trying to be ultra realistic in a very stylistically insincere way, which is really cool, which makes it edgy, which makes it kind of confrontational. But it is going for a bit more of that raw kind of feeling. So uh, it cast accordingly, meaning younger unknown actors. So that's that. Wish I didn't have to talk about that controversy, but it's the most pronounced here. Most of the shows I've covered, maybe all of the shows I've covered, are mostly featuring actors in their 20s playing teenagers. And we can talk about those people in different sorts of ways that we can't within Skins. Skins, I think, is courting controversy based on not only the ages of its actors, but the visibility of them. Like, no one knew who they were, and also the sexual content of the show. They knew exactly what they were doing with Skins. They were trying to be edgy, trying to be controversial. And I think it worked and gave it a reputation amongst the youth within 2007. I mean, that might be the reason why I heard about it. It was notorious, infamous. So there you go. But I do think it's a very well-made show. It's an excellent British television show, and British television shows, like I said, they have certain things that I find disagreeable within a television format, meaning shorter seasons. I prefer 22, 23, even 30 episode seasons. They have like 9 to 10 episode seasons. They're a lot more edgy. There's a lot less censorship put upon them, which gives them a lot more room to operate. I kind of appreciate the creativity that is forced upon showrunners and writers and crews of people who worked on American networks like the WB or Fox, where they had to work within the limitations and restrictions of the studio and end up making something even more creative, more imaginative, more philosophical and special on account of it. You don't seem to have those restrictions in Britain. I think it is a very good, extremely good season of television, though. But the most important thing I think about this season is like how it scares the nihilism not only out of Tony, but possibly out of the more troubled male viewers watching the show. I think it might scare the nihilism out of everyone who watches the show. That Effy episode's really powerful. That's really good. Pulls off the impossible. Like a show like Dawson's Creek has to introduce a new sincerity to transcend nihilism. Skins, it's like a horror movie in the sense that it scares the nihilism out of the viewer and out of its primary character, out of its heartthrob male lead, Tony. It's incredible. The last couple minutes of the finale had me eye rolling in a big way, though, where all the characters spontaneously start to sing Wild World together. I was like, no, no, I'm watching Glee again. I'm watching Glee. This is fucked. It's fine. I think that if I hadn't just watched over 100 hours of Glee, I would have been way cooler and more open to the ultimate finale of the show, which is them singing Cat Stevens songs. Like I would have been way more open to it, but I don't know. Even then, I would have fucking died of cringe watching Tony sing it while he's like, I don't know, maybe dead on a sidewalk, like nothing the world can do. Oh baby, baby, it's a wild world. And he's like, what are we doing? What are we doing, dude? What the fuck are we doing? These are all incredibly sweet kids trying as hard as they can to be meaningful and feel meaning. And that's hard, man, especially in 2007. But I was very impressed by the way these characters meshed, got along with each other, and how narratives intersected, even with like the secondary characters who were kind of in the periphery, started popping up in other of our main principals' narratives. Like I loved how it was designed. It was pretty elegant. It was pretty clever. I really liked it a lot. The writing was mostly extremely good. The character work was outrageous. So many sensitivities, and there's so much power to every episode. The power is kind of arguably overwhelming because it's a smaller season, so the most amount of power into each episode. I need a breather. I need to be able to step back and be like, okay, whew, let's fucking recover from that. Okay, can we recover from how heavy that last episode was? Nope. Nope. We're into something even heavier, which you can argue is insight into the teenage experience of 2007. It was relentless, it was exhausting, and it was always heavy. Um, all these insane forces were encroaching upon your own personal quest for meaning and just trying to destroy it from every angle. And that's basically what Skins is showing us. It's exhausting. There's a lot of power to every episode, and you really need a break. You really need to take a fucking step back, have a cigarette, man. Because you feel like you've been through war after some of these episodes, especially if you end up connecting with these characters. I connected with them a lot. I thought they were all brilliant. Damn, man. Wow. That's like the problem I see coming up. Like I am very curious and intrigued by the concept of changing the cast every 2 years. That's fun. I always said that like high school stories are more interesting than the college years, and like the early seasons are better than the later seasons because the more youthful scenarios allow for more interesting storylines. But I think I'm gonna grow really connected to this original group of kids. I think I'm gonna grow really connected to them. I already am really connected to them. I'm gonna have a difficult time being forced to identify with a whole new group at the end of this next season. That's gonna be hard. It's gonna be hard. Like I hope that I can get over myself and be like, okay, that was fun hanging out with them. Bye. But I don't want to let them go. Like I want to see these kids grow and mature, come of age. Coming of age shows, you're supposed to see them come of age. This is just, the coming. Oh, that sounded wrong. No, it sounded exactly how Skins UK would want it to sound. Those fucking guys. Dude, this show courted controversy relentlessly. You can tell there's parts of episodes. That's why I call it like Harmony Korine directs American Pie. I don't think it goes anywhere outrageous or too far, but it does deliberately do a few excessive things, I think, just to get attention. Which I don't know, maybe that's what you have to do to make a show visible and pop. And this show popped from across the pond, bro. Americans knew about this show. That's a big deal. So maybe there's something to that, something to the way that the show romantically, obsessively seemed to flirt with controversy. So yeah, dude. Oh man. Oh god. But Skins UK, very powerful, very good first season. And Honestly, I think the second season's going to be even better. But the first season did something really special. I love the concept of scaring the nihilism out of the functional sociopath. I love the idea of scaring the nihilism out of Tony in that way. Uh, I don't know how it did it, but it made me love how dark its darkest part was. I'm in love with Skins and the most in its darkest place. I'm in love with the darkest place that Skins season 1 went because it scared the nihilism out of Tony, scared the remaining nihilism out of me, and I think it scared the nihilism out of a large part of my generation, being millennials. Fuck yeah, dude. This was good. I've been your cult boyfriend. Thanks for watching. I'll be back talking about season 2.